Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories this hour. Iran threatens retaliation after the US joins Israel in striking nuclear sites, including a bunker buster which hit the site Fordow. As missiles fly towards Israel, Trump floats regime change, protests erupt in the United States, and oil markets brace for the Strait of Hormuz closure. Israel says its air force is hitting military infrastructure in Iran's Kermanshah region as the conflict enters day 11. The targets include sites Israel claims are used to support missile operations against its territory. At least 22 people are dead and 63 are injured after a gunman opened fire, then detonated a suicide vest inside a church in Damascus, Syria. The attacker, linked to Islamic State, struck during Sunday's service, leaving the church blood-stained and shattered in the city's first major blast since Assad's fall. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba plans to cancel his NATO summit trip, a source says, as key meetings with the IP4 and President Trump are unlikely. Japanese media reports the move reflects growing doubts about the summit's regional engagement plans. Iran says it hanged Mohammed Amin Mardavi Sheh Esteh on Monday for allegedly spying for Israel as the war between the two countries enters day 11. The judiciary accused him of sharing intelligence with what it called the Zionist regime. At least 5 people are killed and 20 are injured in Russian strikes on Kyiv and nearby areas, Ukrainian officials said. 4 died in Shevchenkivsky after a high-rise was hit, and 1 more was killed in Bila Tserkva. Hundreds rallied in The Hague to protest against NATO, military spending, and a potential war with Iran, just days before a major alliance summit. Iranian demonstrators joined calls for peace, urging leaders to invest in peace and not war. Indian Prime Minister Modi spoke with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and called for immediate de-escalation in the Iran-Israel conflict. India reiterated its support for peace, dialogue and regional stability, according to the Foreign Ministry. Now, our top story today. Israeli military confirms airstrikes on 6 airports across western, eastern and central Iran. Targets include key military infrastructure. On the other hand, Israel's army says it is striking military sites in the west of the country, targeting infrastructure in Kermanshah and nearby regions. In another development, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Ravinci told German media the country will continue uranium enrichment and insisted no one can dictate its nuclear plans. He added that Iran is coordinating closely with Russia on the current escalation, as confirmed by the Iranian foreign minister via Iranian media. Meanwhile, the United Nations nuclear watchdog, Rafael Grossi, warned that damage at Iran's Fordow facility remains unclear, as inspectors have not been granted access. Looking at the economic front, oil prices surged over 4% as fears of supply disruption gripped markets. Asian stocks fell, with Tokyo, Seoul and Sydney trading lower today. Till now, over 65,000 Israelis have returned home by air, sea and land crossings. The situation remains fluid, with developments continuing across military, diplomatic and economic fronts. We're now joined by Shruti Dasgupta, international affairs expert located in New Delhi, to discuss this in more detail. Shruti, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. I just want to get your insight into some of the most recent developments today. The world awaits an Iranian response to the US strikes yesterday. The Iranian foreign minister says that Iran won't use diplomacy until this retaliation has happened. What are the possibilities in this situation?
Greetings, Tom. Thank you for inviting me on your show. It's a very tense situation in the Middle East right now. The world is watching with bated breath because Donald Trump promised 2 weeks for negotiations and within 24 hours attacked the three nuclear sites in Iran itself. And the belligerent Iranian regime is now saying that nobody can dictate terms to it, nobody can tell it what to do, and that is the right of every nation. I need to reassert it's the right of every nation to do its own program. We do have UN bodies that control peaceful use of uranium and nuclear things, but this body does not control Israel. So I can talk both sides of the argument, and I can tell you how Iran feels threatened by Israel because Israel has nuclear warheads. Analysts like me suspect that it is somewhere between 70 to 100 in number. And Iran on its own has 60% enriched uranium. According to the IAEA reports, it is 40% surplus than what it was allowed. 60% uranium has no civilian use. Iran also has access to, had access to the nuclear weaponization plans via Pakistan during the AQ Khan time, which is, so they have basically everything they need. They have legions, bomber planes, they have plans, and they are enriching uranium. And the belligerent regime, in response, has said that you cannot tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I need to do to secure myself. So in case the world was hoping to find weapons of mass destruction there, they haven't, but they will now. Because now they face existential crisis where a regime change is being talked about in the US and Israeli circles. And the Ayatollah regime is not very happy with it. So even if they were not planning in the immediate future, maybe it was a far gone long-term plan when they had regained their significance in the world and the sanctions were lifted, and maybe then they would have done this. As a result, with this attack from Donald Trump and the betrayal of his 2 weeks notice, Iran is no longer in the mood to listen to anybody. And this is something that we should all watch very carefully because if Iran decides to actually go ahead with re-enrichment, to further enrich the 60% and actually develop into something of a nuclear nature which is harmful to humanity, nobody can stop it right now. So it's anybody's guess. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Shruti. Please stay with us. Joining us as well is Jitarth J. Bhardwaj. He's the Managing Director of the Australia Today, and he joins us live from Melbourne. Jitarth, thank you very much for joining us. The Deputy Foreign Minister has told German media that Iran will still press on with enrichment. There's rumours and reports speculating that there was a last-minute operation to remove this enriched uranium from these sites that the US bombed. What does that say about the stance that Iran is currently in, giving this the US involvement, the high-profile operation of the bombing yesterday? Does this statement kill any chances of diplomacy?
Chances of diplomacy always come from aggression, and both sides have shown that aggression. US, I think, what US did had primarily support of all the allied nations, including Australia. Australian Prime Minister and Foreign Minister both has issued statements saying that these strikes were necessary to curtail the probable nuclear armaments by Iran, and which is kind of really dangerous for the world we live in. If Iran has that, it could be a different world like what North Korea has. And that's why countries like Australia and New Zealand and Canada have come in favor of strikes. However, when we hear from Iranian point of view, when they say, it's very kind of expected that they will say that we'll go ahead with our nuclear programs. Right now, they are battered, hit very hard by Americans. However, we don't know by those strikes what was the result. I mean, still, there is no clear evidence that 400 kilograms of uranium, which was enriched somehow, where it is. So the end result is Iran is on the same spot where it was before the strikes, and we are asking them to come to the table. However, Iranians are saying we were always on the table. It's you who have started the war. We don't know who will come up. Maybe your country, India, might be the one who can bring America and Iranians on table. We don't know about that. But it's a very difficult position right now because President Trump has said that if they need, they'll be hitting Iran harder than what they have done in last couple of days. They have not said in as many words that they will work for a regime change, but they are saying that a regime change is the end goal. As of today, what we see, situations are very fragile. Here in Syria, the opposition parties all are also supporting the strike. However, government, the Labour government, the Albanese government is very cautious. They took number of hours before responding to these strikes, even though to face some sort of criticism here locally, and then they came in favor of it. So I think the world is still making its mind, but the power what US is, at the end of the day, they are kind of starting to show their support, at least not to anger President Donald Trump any further than what he has already been. Tom?
Thank you very much. Please stay with us. We've got some more information for our viewers. Tensions in the Middle East continue to escalate after President Donald Trump strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, with Iran's parliament now approving a measure to close the Strait of Hormuz. Closing the strait would be a major escalation, potentially paralysing global oil trade and sending energy prices soaring. Iran has threatened to shut the strait before, but this time experts warn the risk of follow-through is very real. Before we head into the discussion, let's understand more about the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most strategic and vulnerable oil choke points, and it's vital to global trade and energy security. Situated between Iran and Oman, this narrow waterway connects the Gulf to the Arabian Sea. At its narrowest point, it's just 33 kilometers wide, with a shipping channel only 3 kilometers across. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just a geographical feature, it's a global lifeline, carrying nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply, up to 21 million barrels a day. It's essential to energy security from Asia to Europe. OPEC giants like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, and even Iran itself export most of their crude oil through this choke point. The US Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, patrols the area to keep commerce moving. If Iran closes Hormuz, it could spike global oil prices and hit the US economy hard. But it would also hurt Iran's own exports and its main buyer, China. America's top diplomat, Marco Rubio, has urged Beijing to pressure Tehran, calling a closure economic suicide. Tankers are already turning around and the world is watching very closely. We're once again joined by Shruti Das Gupta, International Affairs expert, and Jitarth J. Bhardwaj, Managing Editor of The Australia Today. Thank you very much once again for joining us. Shruti, how big of a issue will this be, not just regionally, but globally?
So Strait of Hormuz is, as you said, an oil choke point, but it's just a 33-kilometer wide passage through which containers and cargoes flow through. It's an oil and natural gas export zone, and it controls about close to 30% of both going worldwide. But as of 2023, China is the largest impacted nation by the closure of Strait of Hormuz. It very small amount of it comes to South Korea, India, or any of the other nations. And I believe both these nations have already put out that they have found alternate means of ensuring that the energy security of their nation is not threatened. So that is why Marco Rubio went and said that if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, China would be the largest impacted nation, because almost all of Iran's oil, which it directly controls, and through the Strait of Hormuz, whatever is flowing through, a lot of it goes through China. You have to understand that when they say they will close the Strait of Hormuz, it's not a gate that they would put a lock on. They would hamper the passage of cargo ships. Now, if they choose, they can choose to let the Chinese cargo flow without any problems. So if Marco Rubio thought that by appealing to Beijing, he is going to be able to mitigate this threat, it is not going to happen. Iran can choose not to attack the Chinese cargo ships, and they will flow through the Strait of Hormuz until unless the Oman and UAE, they decide to hamper Chinese ships. Chinese ships really do not face a threat in Strait of Hormuz. What we do understand is that since the parliament has decided, that means that Iran has decided to make itself the enemy of the world now. It is ready to face whatever sanctions, additional sanctions, that it, apart from the 30-year sanction regime that it is already facing, it is ready to face any other consequences that is going to come its way due to this, and they are fine with it. When they are ready to do this via parliamentary basis, you cannot say that it is the regime that is doing it. It is the entire democracy of Iran that has decided to fight the world and US by closing the Strait of Hormuz. So it is not a big problem for China. It is more a problem for the rest of the world. People who are dependent on energy had already started looking for alternates when this kind of posturing had happened. Hopefully, nobody is going to find a major issue. US is looking for mediators to come to the table. As of now, while we are speaking, I believe Iranian delegation is already on its way to speak to Putin in Russia. So you should worry more whether that it's going to turn into a global conflict. Up till now, Putin and Russia have decided not to participate in this, but they just might be pulled into the war in other ways. So back to you, Tom. It's a question anybody can answer right now.
Thank you, Shruti. Jitarth, over to you next. How credible is Tehran's ability to seal this Strait of Hormuz? And you think it's willing to cripple its own oil revenues in order to hurt the Americans and other players in this conflict?
See, right now, what seems is to force Israel and US to back down a little bit. Iran has played this gambit of Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil consumption goes through this strait. So a lot of countries, including Australia, will be hurt by if Iran goes through again doing what they are threatening to. So maybe what their gamble is that global players will force US and Israel to kind of back down from the way they are attacking Iran day out and day in. Probably that's what they are thinking. But if this question is, if Iran goes through and tries to block that a small place called Strait of Hormuz, then it will be a very big problem. If I'm thinking, if that happens, then what I'll be seeing at the browser at my petrol station is double the price of the gas which we put on. So it has real world impacts if Iran goes through. And I'm not sure it will anger everyone or it will force them to bring all the parties to the table more quickly. So we are thinking that everyone is looking for peace. Everyone wants that conflict, war, whatever we want to call it, to end now. So all these threats, all these gambles which both countries or all the players are playing are to bring, have some sort of card in their hands when they are sitting on the table to negotiate. That's the game. And it will be a really bad day for global markets if Iran goes through with this kind of threat. However, let me tell you, America has, if I'm not wrong, 21 stations, permanent stations, just around Strait of Hormuz. So it won't be that easy for Iran to go through to this threat. However, there will be, if Iran decides, there will be a lot of disruptions in terms of oil support to the global economies. And yes, America has played rightly said that China is in that position to kind of say a few words to Iran because their economy will be impacted. They have been suffering for last year and a half. And after Trump coming in last 5 months or so, their economy is really impacted. So I suppose it's a gamble. We don't know which way it will go. Tom?
Thank you very much. I want to thank my guests today, Shruti Das Gupta and Jitarth J. Bhardwaj, for joining us on that. And we will continue to bring you all the updates on this developing situation in the Middle East. We have some breaking news coming in now in a related development where Spain's foreign minister announces plans to urge the EU to embargo weapons sales to Israel and sanction individuals opposing the two-state solution. Spain will also seek an immediate suspension of the trade agreement with Israel. The minister calls on EU foreign ministers to reject war and support diplomacy in the region. We stay in the Middle East. Iran has executed a man accused of spying for Israel's Mossad as tensions between the two countries continues into the 11th day of escalation. Majib Moyassebi was hanged after Iran's Supreme Court upheld his conviction for passing sensitive information to Israel. Authorities did not say when he was arrested. Iran says it has detained dozens of others in recent days. 22 people were arrested in Qom province for alleged links to Israeli spy agencies. 3 more, including 1 European national, were detained in Kermanshah. Iran's judiciary spokesman says special courts are being set up to handle Israeli-linked espionage cases on an extraordinary basis. Human rights groups say Iran is one of the world's top executioners. Norway-based Iran Human Rights says at least 223 people have been arrested nationwide over suspected links to Israel, though the true number could be much higher. A suicide attack struck a church in Damascus, Syria, killing at least 22 people and injuring over 60. The attack happened during a packed service in St. Elias Church in the Dwella neighborhood. According to Syrian authorities, the attacker opened fire before detonating an explosive belt. The Islamic State group has been blamed for this unprecedented assault inside a Syrian church. Eyewitnesses described the chaos as worshippers tried to stop the attacker. First responders rushed victims to hospitals while security forces secured the area. Here's what a resident of the neighborhood said.
من برا هو معه سلاحه فات له هون بلش دغري يقول يا خنازير بده يقوص اول طلقه غاروا عليه الشباب قام راح فجر حاله وهو بعين النقطه مطرح هي الجوره وهو فايت عم بيقول عم بيقول لنا يا خنازير شلنا هون اسعفنا هون حمل اكثر من 10 انا اللي حملتهم بايدينا الاشلاء اللي شلناها بكياس كمان فوق ال 15 20 كيس.
The Syrian Interior Ministry called it a criminal, sinful bombing and vowed to investigate thoroughly. Let's have a look at what the spokesman for the Syrian Ministry of Interior Affairs had to say.
الداخلية السورية التفجير الإجرامي الآثم الذي استهدف كنيسة ماريلياس اليوم، والذي تشير المعطيات الأولية إلى كونه ناتجا عن هجوم انتحاري يتبع لتنظيم داعش. وهذه ليست المرة الأولى التي يحاول تنظيم داعش استهداف المدنيين بأعمال إجرامية فيها، فقد أحبطت وزارة الداخلية محاولتي تفجير في كل من مقام السيدة زينب وكنيسة معلولة في عمليات دقيقة ومعقدة. إننا في وزارة الداخلية نعمل مع الجهات المعنية لكشف تفاصيل الحادثة، ونعكف على استكمال التحقيقات وجمع الأدلة لتحديد هوية المنفذ.
Meanwhile, international leaders condemned the attack. The UN envoy called it a heinous crime, while the US envoy labelled it an act of cowardice. Turkey and France also condemned the violence, urging unity against acts like these. The Orthodox Patriarchate urged authorities to protect all citizens and prevent further violations against religious sites. Security remains a critical challenge for Syria's new government amid ongoing threats. We now turn to Europe. Spain says it will not adopt NATO's new defence spending target of 5% of GDP, calling the figure disproportionate and unnecessary. In a national address, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said his government will stick to a 2.1% spending level, which he claims is enough to meet all NATO commitments. Listen in to what Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, had to say.
Nosotros entendemos la dificultad del contexto geopolítico, respetamos, como no puede ser de otra manera, plenamente el deseo legítimo de otros países de aumentar su inversión en defensa, si así lo quisieran, pero nosotros no vamos a hacerlo. Y no vamos a hacerlo por tres razones fundamentales que me gustaría compartirles brevemente. En primer lugar, porque en nuestro caso, un 5% del Producto Interior Bruto de gasto en defensa sería desproporcionado e innecesario.
Diplomats confirmed that all 32 NATO members agreed to the 5% goal by 2035, despite Spain's opposition. Earlier in the week, Sanchez sent a letter to NATO chief Mark Rutte requesting to opt out of the target, raising concerns it could derail the upcoming summit. Last year, Spain spent just 1.28% of GDP on defence, the lowest in the alliance. However, Madrid has agreed to speed up efforts to reach the existing 2% target this year. Well, that is all we have time for, and we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.